Hello, darlings, and welcome back to another episode of the Mystical Artist Podcast. Mystical with an I, not a Y. Why? Because it is a podcast for the artist who is bold enough to go. Bold, but in the same time, delicate enough, like sensitive enough to go deep into the mystical side of it, deep into their own selves, and to get to those hidden gems they have within themselves, which are hidden in the mist. So, we are talking about energetics that is at the core of everything. And this podcast is for those type of artists who want to delve deeper into the energetics of it and want to actually tap into their most authentic self-expression, into their true talent. Are you a mystical artist? So my name is Emanuela, or you can call me Em, and let's just get started with today's episode, which is all about perfectionism. Before I get into what I want to say about it, which is mostly a discussion, it's actually not so much a discussion because I'm going to tell you the energetics behind it, and you will figure out how it is for you in this moment. And that's actually how you determine whether it is a good thing or a bad thing. And I'm quoting here with my fingers because I'm air quoting, I think that's what you call it, because there isn't really such a thing as a good or bad thing, but in a sense that is it helping you or not. So before I start to talk about it, I want you to answer to these questions by yourselves, for yourself. Um, Perfectionism, is it a gift or a curse? Maybe that was a bit too dramatic. We can go with quality or flaw, whichever you want to answer. And give your answers right now, and then you will answer this question again at the end after I talk about it. So this actually made me think of a job interview that I went to a few years ago, and I was asked of some of my flaws, and I remember saying that is perfectionism was one of them. And they were a bit surprised. Obviously, they were happy for me to say that I have a flaw that they would consider a quality. They actually said, "Oh, that's not a flaw; that's a quality for them." So that didn't really start the idea for this episode, but it is something that came through my mind. But why I chose this topic is because perfectionism is such a big thing in artists. And it's funny because whenever perfectionism is involved, just think about it, it has a very clear outcome, and it's bounding, it's not grounding, but rather, I don't want to say limiting, although it is limiting, but it's bounding. I think it's the best term, to a very specific expectation of an outcome that you have, which is very weird because artists are supposed to be, I'm air quoting again, supposed to be those very free spirited people that just express themselves. I actually was talking to someone the other day and they were like, "Oh, artists are so awesome because they're just so carefree." And I was like, no, they're not. Like, artists, I see so many artists that are so stressed out and have so many things not working out for them, and they are seeing it as a real job, and or they are actually, there's like this discrepancy between acting as if it is a career, and then is it actually a hobby, like not a hobby, but something that I like to do. So it's weird to make it a career. Just so many confusing things in being an artist. And yes, it can be very stressful. I actually am seeing so much doing things as they should be instead of just expressing one's self, which that's what art is. It's a visual representation of you and what's coming from you, what's oozing outside of you from your own energy. And this may seem like we're getting just a tiny bit sidetracked, but it's not, because it is important. Just a second to get a sip of water. So I will kind of start, although we're like 5 minutes in, with confusing you even more if you're not confused right now, and telling you that perfectionism does not exist, while in the same time, everything is perfect just the way it is. That's a weird one, and I'm gonna explain it. So, like everything else, it's not a matter of the action that you take that makes it good or bad. Again, whenever I say good or bad, I'm just trying to make a point. I don't really see things as good or bad, but in a sense of is it helping you or is it detrimental to you? Um, so I was saying that it's not the action, but rather the reason behind it. So just because someone believes in perfection does not mean that they are wrong, or it does not mean that there's some fault in some faulty thinking or whatever. It doesn't mean that they are in shadow. If you've heard me talk about shadow before, um, it does not necessarily have to mean that, because there's such a huge difference energetically. Like just explaining to you the following, like that sentence that I just said. It's one thing to see everything as being perfect just as it is, and it's a completely different thing, again, energetically, to strive for perfection. Like even the word striving for perfection, you are striving for something that is a very defined outcome. What does perfection, let's go back just for a second, step backwards, and just look at the word perfection, perfectionism. What does that actually mean? For a lot of people, I'm sure, perfection is for things to happen in a very specific way. In a very specific way, meaning exactly how they imagine it. So for an artist, I'm guessing either in a life situation where you go for a job interview and you want things to go exactly as you planned, that is perfect. When we're talking about a creation, an artwork, you want it to come out exactly as you saw it in your head. Like you want things to be so good that there's nothing you can tweak about it. There's like there was no error along the way. It's not only about the outcome, it's also this perfection is also attached to the process, because maybe you can make the perfect something, but it's going to take so long, it's going to take such a long time that the process is not perfect anymore, and you're going to get pissed off and blah blah whatever. The thing is, the bottom line is that being attached to a certain perfect is detrimental to you no matter how you look at it. Being a perfectionist in that way is a flaw. And I'm just gonna flat out state it. It's a curse. And actually, it's not something that you're just born with it. We're gonna get back to this a bit later with getting born with it, but it's not something that you're born with it. It's more about needing this. It gives you kind of a safety net when things happen exactly as you plan them. When you have this clear image of how you want things to go, and when things go exactly your way, that's just fucking perfect because you were prepared for everything that happened. Now, in the same time, that can be fucking boring, right? When you strive for perfectionism, and basically when you think of perfect somewhere in the future, you are always going to be disappointed because perfect in the future does not exist. Your version of perfect right now is gonna change in time. What's perfect now for you is gonna not be perfect tomorrow. And what's perfect for me is not perfect for you. So perfect is a fucking illusion. So obviously, when you're striving for perfection, you will miss out. You will be disappointed because it does not fucking exist. It's an illusion. It's like getting at the end of the rainbow to find the pot with gold, right? You cannot get there because it's an illusion. You just can't, right? So there is no such thing. Striving for perfection in the future is a flaw. And it's not, again, something that, oh, you're cursed for the rest of your life. Like I was getting dramatic with saying that it's a curse, right? I like to be dramatic sometimes. But the point is, it's something that you've developed. It's about conditioning. So it's something that you can change. It's not even about changing it, it's about just shifting your focus because everything has a low energy counterpart of a high energy. It's like there's a low frequency energy of the same thing or the same word, the same concept, a low energy, a low frequency one and a high frequency one. So it's a matter of choosing which one are you in that moment in time. It's not about defining it for the rest of your life. You have to choose it each and every moment. So now, the other part of perfectionism that I mentioned in that sentence was that everything is perfect just the way it is. And what that actually means is so fucking deep. It's all about knowingness. I do have a masterclass on this if you're interested in knowing more and how to reach your own knowingness with a capital K, which is this unshakable trust within yourself. It's this mastery in your own energy, knowing who you are and knowing what you do and knowing that whatever you create is exactly how it's supposed to be, and everything that you don't create is just perfect that you did not. Everything you may, I can say that everything happens for a reason, but it's not like destiny is choosing this or whatever, because it's about you making the choice coming from you, and you trust yourself so much that you trust your choices, each and every choice that you make, that it's the best one. And you never make a choice and be like, oh fuck, this was so wrong, I'm going back. You never go back. The worst case scenario is going like shit, but you're like, oh, this means I'm in a challenge. And this challenge, the bigger the challenge, the bigger the expansion once you get on the other side. So there is never turning back in knowingness. You always move forward. And it's always about being in the now. And I'm not going to say actually more, because you want to fucking check out the masterclass on how to know on uniqueartemstudio/lounge.html. So what was I saying? Just getting some water again. This kind of perfectionism, it's actually not a perfectionism. It's the knowingness that everything that is happening is not really a good term, because it may seem like it's not decided by you. But even when things are happening, we're getting so deep into this, even when things are happening that seem to be out of your reach, and they are happening like to you, kind of like it's not, you didn't have anything to do with them, because they're happening to you and you are involved in that happening, you are always in power to decide how is that affecting you or not. How do you choose to respond to that? How do you take that in, or do you take it in, or do you not? You have this power of discernment. Nothing can happen to you and affect you without your consent. And in artwork, like this goes in life, but also in artwork, as I was saying before, knowing, having this mastery over your artistry, which again, it does not have to do with how perfect your technique is or how perfect your line goes, the width, the coloring within the bounds or whatever. It has nothing to do with what society or what outside opinions think perfection is, or what it should be, what the standard is for perfection or for good or for quality or for whatever the fuck it is. Because you set your own standards, you set your own what is and what matters, what is important for that specific artwork that you are working on. And you know, sometimes you may have an artwork that is like, people may say, oh, it's unfinished, it's like a sketch. But it's fucking fascinating, because when you have this knowingness, what others say does not affect you at all, because the words have no power over you. Their words have no power over you, because they cannot tell you who you are. They cannot tell you what your artwork is. They can only tell you what they perceive. And that's okay. It doesn't fucking matter. Because you did not create it for them. You did not create it even for you. You created it for the sake of the artwork itself. Because that needed to be expressed through you. It could have only been expressed through you. And that needed to be put out there. And that's it. No other kind of outcome needed from that. It's just for the sake of the artwork. And when you create from that place of no attachment to an outcome, no attachment to any kind of validation or need for approval or whatever, for praises, appreciation. And no matter the outcome, you enjoy it, actually an understatement. Fully lived the experience of creating that. And that is all the pleasure that you needed. And you may be proud at the end that you created it and it's so amazing and you're falling in love with it. I fall in love with all of my artworks, each and every one. And my favorite one is always the last one. But then I let it go and I move on to the next one. There's no attachment. And so I see the perfection in each artwork. No matter how the proportions are not right, the whatever. Because if something is off, like I actually don't like, for whatever reason, like not necessarily for some standard kind of reasons, but for my personal knowingness, like it comes from my intuition that something is not right with the artwork and it doesn't seem like it's good, then I fix it on the go. I change it. I make it so it is fucking perfect. And there are so many artists that are like, if I like something today, I won't like it tomorrow, and then I want to like tweak it again and work on it some more. And you can tinker on it like for fucking forever. And that's what I said. That's why I'm saying that it's so important to work on it. And you know when it's finished. If you are connected to yourself, to your intuition, there is this knowingness that you know it's done. And not finish it because you're fucking bored. That's not a reason to finish it. The best reason to finish it as the masterpiece that it is for you to just know that it's done. No matter how sketch-like it looks or how many details it has, it does not matter what it seems from the outside, in what standards it is, or is it not finished, or whatever. It matters to your own mastery, to your own knowingness. This is done, and that's it. And you put it aside, and you begin a new one. You let it go. You don't tinker at it forever. Actually, I might have wanted to start with the negative aspect of perfectionism because it comes from insecurity. When you are tinkering forever at something and you're always thinking, like you may notice yourself thinking what others will think of the artwork while you're creating it. Oh, I should do this arm longer or something, or this is too thin and I should make it more in a certain way because people will say that it's too thin. Like you will actually catch yourself, if you're paying attention, thinking of what people will think of it. When you're doing that, you are not creating from your genius. You are not creating from your talent. You're just trying to be accepted. You're just trying to fit in. You're just trying to adapt to some kind of standards out there. But it's when it comes from pure self-expression, anything that comes after the creation of it does not matter. It can be perceived as good or bad, but for you, it does not matter. Not in a sense that you are senseless, but in a sense that it does not influence how you do things because you are doing them from the most pure form of talent within you anyway. So then it does not matter. And so when you are in this perfectionist state where you are always like striving to even the idea of getting better. I've so talked about this. I'm going to reference yet another masterclass of mine, how to improve without criticizing yourself, and basically how to improve while loving each and every one of your artworks. Because there is this idea that if you do think that what I was saying, that everything is perfect and what you do right now is perfect, you are settling and you are not going to strive to get better. Just the idea of getting better, subconsciously it makes you see yourself as not good enough. Even if you don't think consciously that you're thinking that of yourself, you are subconsciously, and it's way more powerful when it's in your subconscious, and it has an impact on you, that kind of energy, that you are not good enough, so you need to get better. You don't need to get better. You have to be the best version that you can be right now. Because when you understand that this statement, both of its seemingly opposing aspects are true, that's when you understand so much. But you understand it when you can actually experience it. And the statement is the following: you are a master right now, yet in the same time, you are always improving. Improving is not even the right word, but you're always growing, always expanding, always becoming more masterful, if that's even possible, which it is. But which it is, and it is not, because you're very masterful at this point in time. And what you always want to do, and that's how you, in a nutshell, how you improve, is by you giving, and I wanted to say like give 110% all of the time, but it's more than that, because it's not about struggling, because that's not what I want you to do, to struggle to make it the best thing ever. Because when you do that, you are attached to the idea of making the best thing ever. There's attachment involved, and that is not gonna connect you to your genius, to your talent, to your self-expression with a capital S and capital E. It's not gonna do that. It's gonna create constricted energy. It's gonna constrict the energy flow, and you're gonna it's like choking, and you're not being able to create from your full potential. You're gonna be creating from the mind, like almost any artist out there. Creating from the mind is just focusing on technique, on the drawing, on the shape, on the whatever, and you're not taking the whole picture in, which is not really the whole picture. It's more like just allowing yourself to create what comes through you. So again, going back to the idea, perfectionism is coming from insecurity. It's also coming from the fact that if you see the imperfections now, others won't see it later, and it's not going to be, or if you admit to not liking your artwork so much, oh, it's not that good, then you will not get that hurt when people tell you, oh, it's not good. You will have the excuse that, oh, it's not that good. Yeah, I know, because I should have done that better. Like, I already know that. If you know that you should have done something better, just fucking do it. We are getting into so many other topics here, but they are so interconnected with criticism and feedback, which is probably going to be one of the next episodes, and with loving your artwork, with so many good topics here, which again, we're going to be tackling each of them independently. But yes, perfectionism is a flaw if you're striving for it. If you see perfectionism sometime in the future, because it means you are not in the now, you are not in the present, thus you are not connected to your true talent, and you are not being in the now. And because you're not being in the now, you cannot connect to your true talent, because it just cannot happen. So the other thing that I did want to touch on is that the born thing, if you are born a perfectionist, which is not really a thing, but you may be very inclined to becoming a perfectionist because you may be born with this attention to detail. So whenever you think of a flaw that you might consider having, like in this case, perfectionism, maybe you actually see it as a flaw, but you don't know how to handle it. Think of the good things that it brings you. What does perfectionist actually mean? That you are striving to be better. Now that's a low energy type of thought, belief, as I was saying. Yet it means that you are always eager to learn. You are always eager to step into the next challenge, which is an energy that you can use. That is such a hugely good thing. Again, good and bad, air quotes. But you understand what I'm saying. It's going to help you improve so much faster. That eagerness to move beyond what is. Then also, it is this attention to detail, which can help you so much because details make such a huge difference. Like, you know the expression, the devil is in the details, but the devil is not a bad thing. Good or bad doesn't really exist. Like, there's so much potency in details. Details make the difference. And it's just a matter of removing the insecurities around the details so you don't over perfect them so that you can get some kind of approval or whatever. So when you get those out of the way, you will be able to just focus on the details that matter and let the rest go. So look at perfectionism. If it is a flaw and you are noticing that is detrimental to you, see what are the good aspects of it that you can focus on. How can you shift your perspective, your view on it all? And in the same time, no matter how flawed perfectionism actually is, again, it is not a curse because there is no such thing as a curse. A curse meaning that it's something that you're just stuck with and you don't like. There is no such thing. If you are experiencing something shitty, you always have the power to choose something else and shift it. Right. So perfectionism does exist and people can see the perfection and imperfection. It's something kind of along those lines, but there actually is no such thing as imperfection. Because everything in this universe is just a result, an effect of energy. And there cannot be something out of place. It's like snow, when snowflakes drop. Like, they seem so random, but they are not. And everything is at the right place at the right time. So anything. Anyway, anyway, this was quite a long one. And that is perfectionism for you. And I'm gonna finish again with the idea that I started with. There is no such thing as perfectionism, especially not in the future, but in the present moment, it is everywhere. Everything is perfect just the way it is. And for you to actually get to see, but not to force yourself into seeing this, but when you will actually get to experience this for yourself and be like, ah, that's what she was talking about. It's gonna be so fucking powerful. It's a paradox, like anything so importantly juicy in life. Okay, darling, this is for today's episode. Cannot wait to see you on the next one. Bye, guys.